In this video, we are going to give you the ultimate tips on how to survive winter, not just any winter, freezing winter in an RV, so stay tuned. Hi, we are Steven and Ayada. We have started full-time RVing while traveling and working remotely as tech professionals. And we are also converting our own van on the go so that we can start van life. So buckle up, subscribe, and join us on our journey. When you're just living in a house or an apartment, you don't need to worry about a lot of these things we're gonna share with you here. But once you get into an RV, things really require your attention. Like, for example, your water. You don't need to worry about your water getting frozen.
So to stop your pipes from freezing in icy conditions, you need a heated freshwater pipe. Basically, this has heat coil wrapped around so that in freezing conditions, your freshwater pipe will not freeze. Now, you can either make it yourself. If you want the economical solution, you can buy heated tape and you can wrap it around your existing hose pipe, or you can buy a ready-made pipe like this. And this one, basically, you plug in to your electrical outlet and you connect it to your water. Now, this has a nice little thermometer, actually senses when the temperature drops below a certain point. Just make sure that if you're putting skirting along your trailer, that this thermometer is outside of that skirting. We had an issue where it was inside of the skirting, and I believe the water started to freeze one time. And campsites like this have a spigot down below where you can actually connect it in really freezing conditions. But generally, the above ground spigot will work, but generally you have a foam insulation that you can put over the spigot area to stop the metal parts from freezing over here, and also the side that you connect to your trailer or RV. In wintertime, skirting your RV is a must, because the chilled air can go underneath your RV and can freeze the pipes. Now, some RVs like ours is a summer RV, but we managed to survive freezing weather.
Actually, it's not just any summer RV, it's a very light RV.
One of the reasons why we bought such a light RV is that we could tow it with our van. But one of the disadvantages of a light RV that doesn't have a lot of insulation underneath is that pipes are exposed. One of the best things you can do is have some sort of skirting. Now, some people use vinyl skirting and they get it specially made for their RV. We, on the other hand, decided to use styrofoam skirting board around our RV. And there's different types of styrofoam skirting you can use. There's the white styrofoam, which is the cheapest, but the problem with that is it breaks really easily and the R value isn't that great. Then there's a black styrofoam, which the R value is really high on that, but again, it may not be as strong as the one which we have, which is the pink styrofoam. So the pink styrofoam that we used is not made out of the little bubbles, and it doesn't break as easily. In fact, it's fairly durable. So when you have strong winds blowing, it's not going to break as easily as, say, the white styrofoam. So what I found useful is to put a little bit of duct tape at certain points to try stick the styrofoam onto the RV, but you don't want to put that duct tape all around, otherwise it may mark the RV. And then to seal the top part of the RV so the hot air does not escape, if you can get a really thick painter's tape or masking tape to put on top there, and that masking tape comes off really easily, especially if you're moving, say, every week. Another way that you can stop your pipes from freezing is to insulate it with, you know, those pool noodles that people swim with? We found some of those, some bright pink ones at Walmart, but you can buy insulation at Home Depot that go around the pipe to insulate the pipe from the wind chill that could freeze the pipes. And what you can do is you can spray foam inside with the noodles to help seal off that noodle area. And the spray foam you use, make sure you use the soft spray foam for windows and doors that's used in construction, not the one that expands really hard, because you don't want the spray foam to expand and to crack anything around it. You want it just to insulate.
Also, for future maintenance, if you have a broken pipe It's easier to get through the soft spray foam than the rock solid one.
Some trailers will be more insulated underneath, so it really depends on your trailer what you need to do.
Another thing to bear in mind is freezing of the doors, and the chances of you getting locked in are really high if you don't take some precautions, like for example oiling the door or spraying some silicone.
Yeah, you can get a silicone spray that you can spray, so you may want to just put a bit of oil or some of that silicone spray around some of the seals of your doors to try prevent that from happening.
If that ever happens, just turn on your heaters inside and wait until it's warm enough to allow you to open the door, because you don't want to force the door and end up breaking it. Also be careful you don't slip on your steps outside, because ice will form on them. To prevent it, you just need to sprinkle some salt in it. It really worked for us. And don't do something that was really stupid that I did, which is pouring hot water on the steps to melt the ice, because if it's really cold, it will turn into ice really soon after. So salt is the best way to go.
So another big issue is your sewer pipe, because you don't want that to freeze overnight. So when we had really cold weather, our sewer pipe actually went up a little before it went into the drain. Now that was a problem waiting to happen, because if there was not warm water gushing down, that would essentially freeze, and you don't want a poopsicle of poop frozen. So I recommend that in really freezing cold weather, only attach your sewage pipe when you need to empty it, and then you make sure your sewage pipe is empty of materials and liquid, and you reattach it when you want to empty your black or grey tank again. And I recommend you don't leave that attached and open overnight. If you have just water dripping slightly overnight, that again could freeze.
Actually, a lot of people say that if you leave water dripping, it will prevent freezing, but actually you are looking for trouble, because you're gonna have icicles.
In cold weather, dripping water will freeze. What some people do, and we have not tried this, is they put RV antifreeze when they flush their toilet and when they flush their sink. This helps the water that's been flushed down from freezing. We haven't found that we needed to do that. We rather disconnected our pipes, and that seemed to work for the most part for us.
So girls, your hairdryer will come really handy in case you need to thaw some ice. It really works great.
So I had to use Nayara's hairdryer to actually thaw one of the releases of the grey water or the black water, because it seemed to have frozen inside and I was struggling to pull it out. Now never force it if it's not pulling out, because it could be frozen. I also put a space heater, and eventually I was able to pull it and flush the sewage out. Another really useful tool that some people have is temperature gauges with remote sensors. Now this is great because you can have your temperature display inside, and then you can have a sensor inside your cabin, you can have a sensor outside, and you can have a sensor underneath near your water tanks. So you can see the temperature of where it is underneath where your water tanks are to ensure that it's not freezing.
One of the things to bear in mind is wind. And you are gonna get a lot of it, especially depending where you park. Some areas are very windy, and it can be very scary.
Especially when you have a light RV like ours. We parked in a mountainous area and we had a lot of wind, and we were warned not to park that way into the wind, but to park that way into the wind.
Because you don't want to get flipped if the winds are very high.
And this particular place nearby, apparently a shed had actually blown down previously, so it was a pretty scary night. We moved the RV multiple times, and eventually we parked in a way where we were headed more into the wind.
Also remember to keep your awning shut if it's windy, because it can really damage not just your awning but your RV as well.
And remember, if it's snowing, to bring your awning in. We had a situation where we had snow gathering in our awning, and there we go. Hey Naz!
I made a stupid decision to open the awning, and now it's frozen.
it's got snow in. And I had to actually brush out some of the snow in order to roll our awning back.
Also, the snow can get really heavy on it and you don't want to break it. Another thing to bear in mind is trees. You do not want to park underneath them in windy conditions because they may fall and destroy your rig. There are some things that can also help you keep warmer inside, like mats, for example. They provide some distancing between your feet and the cold floor. Warm socks are really good. Not just warm socks, but
thermal socks. So these thermal socks that can stand on their own 2 feet. Nice thick socks. And a few of the ways you can stay warm inside is, one of them is propane. If you're propane heating, that's great, but make sure that you have enough propane on board. Propane is also a great backup to electricity. So one of the RV parks that we've stayed at, the electricity has actually gone down multiple times. So you can't rely on the electricity in cold, windy, stormy conditions. So it's really useful to have propane as a backup. So another thing that you want to be sure of in icing conditions is that you have enough propane. So these are 2 20-pound propane tanks. Now what you can pretty easily do on rigs like this is you can upgrade these to 30-pound propane tanks. And how you do that is this thread in the middle. You basically can buy a whole new attachment, or you can get a new thread that you just place in here. I believe it might be a 3/8 of an inch thread that you can buy from Home Depot or a store like that. You should be able to then insert the new thread in this position so you can strap down your 30-pound tanks. And what this helps you do is this helps you to have enough propane, hopefully, to get you through that cold weather before you need to go and refill it again. Also make sure that you have a cover of some sort for your propane tank, because in icy conditions the valve can actually get wet and then freeze up, and that may stop you from being able to use your propane in the winter time. So be sure this valve is kept nice and dry. Our primary source of heat that we use is electricity, and we have these amazing little space heaters that you can put at different places around the RV, and that can help heat the RV without using up your propane, especially if you're paying for electricity at an RV park and it's included in the price. Why use your own propane? When electricity has gone down in the past, we've sometimes used our own generator, but always have propane as a backup to your electricity. Now you may have issues where you can't plug in too many heaters inside your rig because your rig is limited to 20 amps or 30 amps. We have a 30 amp rig, so we can't run too many heaters at once through our 30 amp. But we have a little trick. We have a extension cord that plugs in at the outlet outside, which has a 30 amp plug, and it has 2 other plugs, 2 of the normal 15 amp or 10 amp plugs, and we run that extension cord from one of those 15 amp or 10 amp plugs around under the RV through the window, and that enables us to use our 30 amps within our trailer plus some extra electricity. And that's really useful if you want to run multiple heaters in really cold conditions. If you do buy an extension cord, buy one with a little light that indicates that the electricity is on. This is really useful, because if the electricity does go down, you don't need to be running outside to the breaker box every time thinking that maybe the breaker has gone down. So from the light you can see that the extension cord is on, and that's really useful to diagnose if there are any issues where the electricity goes down. So most RVs will not have double pane windows, and what you can do is you can get a film that you can put over your current windows to create kind of like an air gap in between, and that will help avoid some of the heat escaping from your RV.
Moisture is another thing that's really annoying, especially during winter, because if it's raining outside, it creates moisture inside. Also, like if you're breathing, if you have pets that exhale a lot,
it's really important to have a dehumidifier in winter.
Cooking with propane also creates a lot of moisture, so we avoid it by using just an electric hot pot. And another thing that we avoid, actually we started avoiding now, is having clothes or anything that touches the wall and prevents it from breathing, because it will trap moisture inside. Your clothes inside the cabinets, make sure that you're not touching the outside walls, because it can trap moisture and it can cause mold. Remember, you are inside a small space. You do not want to be breathing in mold. Check underneath your mattress, because that's a prime place for trapping moisture. In winter you have a lot of coats and you need a place to hook those coats, and we have these beautiful hooks here that we came across, and they are very, very strong. We can hook, I don't even know how many pounds at the time, but they're really strong. We have them everywhere around RV. They're really, really that easy to stick and really, really strong. We hope these tips really helped you out. If you like this video, please don't forget to give us your thumbs up. You're welcome to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so you can be notified of every new video we share.
And ask your questions in the comments area below. If you have other tips that you'd like to add, please add them in the comments below, and it will help other people.
We hope to see you guys soon again.
Bye.
Bye.